Introduction. The misunderstood nature of prayer. Prayer, in its deepest meaning, has been misunderstood for centuries. For most people, prayer is thought of as a plea, a beseeching, a request made to a higher power, asking for something that one does not currently have. This common conception assumes lack and proclaims it. It says, "I don't have this, please give it to me." But in the mystical tradition, in the teachings of the world's great metaphysicians, especially in the work of Joseph Murphy, prayer is not asking. It is not begging. It is not supplication. It is acknowledgement. It is recognition. It is the mental acceptance that the thing you desire is already yours in the unseen, already accomplished in the infinite mind, and therefore must appear in your physical reality. The moment one moves from asking to acknowledging, the entire spiritual mechanism of manifestation shifts. Prayer becomes an act of knowing, not wishing. It becomes the quiet inner realization that the good you seek is already here, already established, and waiting only for your mental acceptance. This is what Joseph Murphy means when he says, prayer is the soul's sincere desire. True prayer is not asking, but acknowledging the secret, the truth that what you desire is already within you. This is not a poetic metaphor. It is a principle of mind and consciousness. Throughout his works, the power of your subconscious mind, the miracle of mind dynamics, the cosmic power within, your infinite power to be rich, and many more. Murphy insists that the subconscious mind responds not to pleading but to belief, not to fear but to conviction. This article, in its full 15,000 words, of which this is the first section, will explore the concept at every level. The metaphysics behind acknowledgement, the psychological mechanisms involved, the spiritual laws Murphy believed in, the practical implications for daily living, the deeper philosophical roots in Hermeticism, New Thought, Vedanta, and Scripture, how acknowledgement aligns consciousness with realization, how prayer becomes a state of being rather than an event, and how this principle can transform your life when properly understood. Chapter 1. What most people think prayer is. Before we can understand Murphy's teaching about acknowledgement, we must examine the traditional mindset around prayer. In most cultures and religions, prayer is considered asking God for help, requesting something one lacks, begging for mercy, protection, or favor, a conversation with a higher power, an act of dependency, a verbal or mental expression of need. The underlying emotion in these prayers is often fear, anxiety, or desperation. A person prays for money because they feel lack. A person prays for health because they fear illness. A person prays for love because they feel alone. A person prays for deliverance because they believe danger is near. In these prayers, the emotional vibration communicated to the subconscious mind is, "I do not have what I desire." This is the exact opposite of fulfillment. It reinforces the lack. It strengthens the problem. It embeds the undesirable condition deeper into the subconscious. Murphy explains repeatedly, the subconscious mind accepts what you feel to be true. If your prayer is begging, you are proclaiming lack, and the subconscious reproduces lack. Thus, the paradox. The more you beg, the more you perpetuate the very condition you want to escape. This is why Murphy emphasizes the need to shift from asking to knowing. Chapter 2. Joseph Murphy's revolutionary idea, prayer as acknowledgement. Joseph Murphy was not the first to teach this, but he articulated it with a clarity and simplicity that made his work globally transformative. His central message about prayer can be summarized in one sentence. Prayer is the mental acceptance of what is already true in the infinite. To Murphy, prayer is the alignment of the conscious mind with divine truth, the recognition that what you desire exists in the infinite reservoir of spirit, the acceptance that your desire is already a spiritual fact, a shift from desire to realization, the internal yes to the good you seek. He often used phrases like, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, claim that which is already yours by the law of mind, give thanks for the answer before you see it. Your desire is the voice of God calling you to greater expression. These statements all point to the same principle. The spiritual world already contains everything you could ever want, because God's nature is infinite abundance. When you pray correctly, you mentally accept that this abundance is yours. Prayer, therefore, is not a request. It is a mental union with the reality you desire. This is why Murphy considered the act of asking to be incomplete or even counterproductive. Asking implies separation, distance, uncertainty, lack, unworthiness. Acknowledgement, by contrast, implies unity, closeness, certainty, fullness, inherent worthiness. Thus, for Murphy, the moment you ask, you confess that you do not have. But the moment you acknowledge, you proclaim that you already have. and the world must mirror that truth. Chapter 3. The Secret Revealed. What exactly are we acknowledging? Murphy's line, "Acknowledging the secret revealed," raises a natural question. What is this secret? The secret is this: all things exist first in mind, your mind, the divine mind, and what exists in mind is as real as what exists in form. In other words, the invisible precedes the visible, the spiritual precedes the physical, the mental precedes the material, consciousness precedes creation. To acknowledge the secret revealed means you accept that the thing you want is already real at the spiritual level. You recognize that everything begins in the unseen. You understand that the world of forms is the final expression, not the origin. You see yourself as co-creator with the divine. You rest in the knowledge that the infinite mind has already created the answer. Murphy often emphasized that the fact that you desire something is proof that it already exists on the spiritual plane. You desire it only because it seeks expression through you. Thus, acknowledgement is not fantasy. It is not wishful thinking. It is not delusion. It is the recognition of a reality that exists before physical manifestation. This is the secret. Chapter 4. The Law of Assumption and the Law of Belief. Murphy's explanation aligns strongly with what Neville Goddard called the law of assumption. Murphy framed it this way: whatever you assume to be true becomes your reality. When you pray by acknowledgement, you are engaging the law of assumption. You are mentally accepting the desired state as a present fact. Murphy said, you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This assumption, once impressed upon the subconscious mind, will be made manifest. This leads us to the law of belief. Your belief is the mold that shapes your reality. Prayer works because it imprints belief onto the subconscious mind. Acknowledgement works because belief grows when you stop asking and start accepting. Chapter 5. Why asking doesn't work. Joseph Murphy was bold in stating that asking is ineffective. Why? Because asking reveals uncertainty, doubt, separation from the desired good, emotional resonance with lack, subconscious contradiction. You can ask with your words while silently believing, this isn't going to happen. I don't deserve this. I hope this works. Things never go my way. Murphy's famous line, you do not get what you want. You get what you believe. Asking expresses want. Acknowledgement expresses belief. This is the psychological difference. Asking says, I want. Acknowledgement says, it is done. The subconscious responds only to the latter. Chapter 6. Acknowledgement and the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind does not argue, does not question, does not analyze, does not judge, does not reason. It accepts whatever you feel to be true. When you pray through acknowledgement, you generate feelings of peace, gratitude, certainty, fulfillment, possession. These feelings imprint the desire onto the subconscious mind, which then works relentlessly to manifest it. When you beg or ask, you generate feelings of worry, fear, desperation, lack, frustration. These two are impressed onto the subconscious and produce matching physical conditions. Thus, acknowledgement aligns feeling with fulfillment. Asking aligns feeling with lack. Chapter 7. The Role of Gratitude in Acknowledgement. Murphy often said, give thanks for the answer as though it were already received. Why? Because gratitude is acknowledgement in emotional form. It is the highest form of acceptance. When you are grateful for something, you implicitly state, I have it. It is mine. It has already been given. I occupy the state of fulfillment. Gratitude is the emotional signature of acknowledgement. This is why many spiritual traditions emphasize giving thanks before the manifestation. Chapter 8. Scriptural Roots of Acknowledgement. Murphy was heavily influenced by Scripture, which he interpreted metaphysically, not literally. He pointed to verses like, before you call, I will answer. Isaiah 65:24. This implies that the answer precedes the request, that the good already exists. Believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Mark 11:24. Notice the tense. Believe you have received acknowledgement, and it will be yours. Manifestation follows realization. Let the weak say, I am strong. Joel 3:10. This is a command to acknowledge strength before it appears. To him who has, more shall be given. Matthew 13:12. Those who acknowledge possession, mentally, receive more. Chapter 9. Prayer through inner knowing. Murphy taught that the highest prayer is not words. It is inner knowing, a silent conviction in the heart. It is a state of consciousness rather than an act of speech. When you enter the state of acknowledgement, the mind becomes still. The heart becomes receptive. The body relaxes. Resistance dissolves. The subconscious becomes open to impression. Divine intelligence flows freely. This inner stillness is the true temple of prayer. Chapter 10. Practical steps for praying by acknowledgement. Murphy often gave simple, repeatable methods. Here is a distilled version. Step 1. Define your desire. Be clear. The subconscious responds to clarity. Step 2. Enter a relaxed state. Before sleep is ideal. Step 3. Assume the feeling of fulfillment. Imagine how it would feel if the prayer were already answered. Step 4. Give thanks. Say inwardly, thank you, as though receiving the gift. Step 5. Release it. Do not strain, force, or beg. Simply accept and let go. Step 6. Act from the state of fulfillment. Move through the world as though your prayer is already a fact. Chapter 11. The shift from desire to realization. One of Joseph Murphy's most profound teachings is the idea that desire is only the beginning, not the end point, of prayer. Desire is a signal, an indicator that something within you seeks expression. But desire alone does not create results. Murphy often said, desire is the spark, realization is the flame. When you desire something, you become aware of what you could have. When you acknowledge that it is already yours, you step into the state of already being. The shift looks like this. Desire, I want this. I hope it comes true. Realization, it is done. It is mine. I rest in fulfillment. Desire creates movement. Realization creates manifestation. This shift, from wanting to knowing, is the entire mechanism behind effective prayer. Chapter 12. The Psychology of Inner Acceptance. The human mind operates on two levels. 1. The conscious, thinking, reasoning. 2. The subconscious, feeling, belief, automatic patterns. Murphy emphasized that the subconscious mind is the creative engine. It processes what you accept, not what you wish. It manifests what you believe, not what you ask for. It reproduces what you feel, not what you say. Thus, acknowledgement becomes the psychological key. When you say inwardly, I accept that this is already mine, the subconscious locks onto that acceptance and brings it forward. Inner acceptance is not mere positive thinking. It is calm, deep, emotionally grounded, immersive, certain. Acceptance is a feeling state. Murphy says that inner acceptance is like planting a seed. You plant it, acknowledgement. You water it, gratitude. You leave it alone, release. It grows without your conscious effort. This is why struggling, forcing, or begging does not work. They disturb the soil. Chapter 13. The Role of Imagination in Acknowledgement. Murphy considered imagination the most powerful spiritual faculty. He taught, imagination is the workshop of the mind. What you imagine and feel as true becomes your reality. Imagination is the bridge between desire and realization, asking and acknowledging, possibility and manifestation. Through imagination, you give the subconscious a blueprint. But the blueprint must be detailed, emotional, and complete. For example, instead of imagining being rich, imagine paying your bills with ease, saving money, feeling secure, feeling abundant. Instead of imagining being healthy, imagine walking freely, feeling strong, being pain-free, radiating vitality. Instead of imagining being loved, imagine the warmth, the joy, the comfort, the companionship. Imagination embodies the acknowledgement. When you imagine correctly, you experience the end result internally, and the subconscious treats that experience as reality. Chapter 14. Feeling is the secret of acknowledgement. Murphy closely aligned with Neville Goddard on this principle. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Why is feeling important? Because feeling is the language of the subconscious. Words are for the conscious mind. Emotions are for the subconscious mind. Here is the truth Murphy emphasized. You cannot feel lack and manifest abundance. You cannot feel fear and manifest love. You cannot feel sickness and manifest health. You cannot feel unworthy and manifest success. Thus, the feeling of fulfillment must precede the physical manifestation. This is why acknowledgement is so powerful. Acknowledgement automatically generates the feeling of possession. When you say inwardly, I have it now, it is done. Thank you. The feeling of fulfillment arises naturally. This feeling is the magic. Chapter 15. The Paradox of Prayer Letting Go. One of the most difficult concepts for people to understand is that you must release the prayer after acknowledging it. Murphy said, do not compel, do not force, do not strain. Simply accept and let it be. The paradox is, intensity of desire often creates tension. Tension creates resistance. Resistance blocks manifestation. Letting go, on the other hand, expresses trust, expresses belief. expresses certainty, expresses confidence, opens the subconscious mind. Letting go is the inner statement. I have already received it. All I must do now is wait for the form to catch up with the substance. This is why the feeling of peace is such a powerful indicator that the prayer has been accepted. Peace, alignment, struggle und resistance. Chapter 16. The Law of Correspondence. As within, so without. Murphy frequently quoted the Hermetic principle. As within, so without. As above, so below. This principle states that your external world corresponds exactly to your internal state. Your environment mirrors your mental patterns. Your circumstances reflect your inner image. Your experiences arise from your assumptions. Thus, if you acknowledge abundance, abundance appears. If you acknowledge health, health manifests. If you acknowledge harmony, harmony surrounds you. The subconscious is a faithful servant. It takes your assumption and molds the outer world to match it. Chapter 17. The Spiritual Nature of Acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is not only psychological, it is spiritual. Murphy taught that every desire is actually the voice of God within you, the divine impulse seeking expression, the unfolding of your higher nature. Thus, your desire is sacred. When you acknowledge the fulfillment of your desire, you are cooperating with the divine. Murphy's metaphysical view was, God expresses through us. God creates through our imagination. God manifests through our beliefs. God's nature is abundance, life, love, and expansion. Therefore, to acknowledge your good is to honor the divine presence. You are not convincing God to give you something. You are recognizing what God has already placed within you. Chapter 18. How acknowledgement changes your self-image. Every manifestation ultimately rests on one foundation, your self-concept. If you do not believe you are worthy of something, you cannot receive it. Acknowledgement works because it restructures your self-image. When you say, I am successful, I am worthy of love, I am healthy, I am prosperous, I am guided, you align your identity with the state you desire. Your subconscious begins to accept this new identity. This identity then expresses itself through your behaviors, your habits, your energy, your choices, your opportunities. Acknowledgement rewrites the inner script that determines your life. This is why all true prayer is self-transformation. Chapter 19. How action flows from acknowledgement. Murphy never taught that you should do nothing. Instead, he taught that action arises naturally from acknowledgement. When you know your prayer is already answered, you act with confidence. You notice opportunities you previously ignored. You are guided by intuition. You take inspired steps. You persist without fear. You move with a sense of direction. The difference between forced action and aligned action is immense. Forced action comes from fear. I must do this or I will fail. Aligned action comes from knowing. This is simply the next step in my fulfilled state. Acknowledgement simplifies life. It makes the right actions obvious. Chapter 20. The Feeling of Already Done. This chapter is one of the most central to Murphy's teaching. To pray effectively, you must cultivate the feeling, it is already done. This is a unique feeling, different from hope, desire, or excitement. The feeling of already done is calm, steady, peaceful, grounded, confident, assured. It feels like a quiet yes inside you. When this feeling appears, it is a sign that the subconscious has accepted the prayer. The spiritual prototype is complete. The manifestation is inevitable. Time will deliver what consciousness has created. Murphy insisted this is the moment the prayer is truly complete. The outer result will follow. Chapter 21. The Two Types of Prayer. Formal and informal. Joseph Murphy made a powerful distinction between two forms of prayer. 1. Formal prayer. These are the structured moments when you deliberately enter into prayer. Before sleep, during meditation, while journaling, during a quiet moment, following a ritual or routine. Formal prayer is intentional. It is a conscious act of acknowledgement. 2. Informal prayer. These are the subtle thoughts, feelings, and assumptions you carry throughout the day. Your automatic reactions, your inner dialogue, your emotional tendencies, your expectations, your assumptions about life. Murphy said, your whole day is a prayer because your whole day is a stream of assumptions. Even when you are not praying, you are praying. Even when you are silent, you are influencing your subconscious. This is why acknowledgement must become a way of being, not a momentary technique. Your life mirrors your dominant inner climate, not your temporary conscious thoughts. Chapter 22. The Difference Between Belief and Hope. Murphy repeatedly distinguished between belief and hope, because many people confuse the two. Hope says, I wish this happens. I want this to be true. I am waiting. I am unsure. Belief says, it is already accomplished. It is mine now. I know this is true. I rest in certainty. Hope is weak because it contains doubt. Belief is powerful because it contains certainty. Murphy wrote, hope is a beggar. Belief is a master. Hope makes you lean outward. Belief makes you stand inwardly firm. Prayer through acknowledgement is not hopeful. It is knowing, accepting, receiving, owning. When prayer becomes acknowledgement, belief is activated. Chapter 23. Why the subconscious only responds to the end result. The subconscious mind doesn't care about the process. It cares only about the end state. Murphy emphasized this repeatedly. The subconscious accepts the end result as true and brings it to pass. This is why prayer through acknowledgement focuses on the final feeling, the final result, the final identity, the final emotional state. It does not focus on how, when, where, through whom. Those details belong to universal intelligence, not the conscious mind. When you pray correctly, you are not concerned with the mechanics. You know, the thing exists. It is already created. It is already yours. It will take form in the best possible way. You simply impress the end result. You let the subconscious handle the path. Chapter 24. Acknowledgement as a state of receivership. In Murphy's teachings, prayer is a receiving act, not a giving act. Most people think prayer is giving requests, giving words, giving emotion, giving effort. But acknowledgement reverses this entirely. Acknowledgement places you into the state of receiving, allowing, accepting, opening, welcoming, permitting. This is the state where manifestation becomes effortless. Murphy often said, the answer to prayer is given the moment you accept it in consciousness. To accept is to receive. To receive is to acknowledge. To acknowledge is to declare the invisible a present reality. Chapter 25. The Inner Voice and Divine Guidance. A large part of Murphy's teaching revolves around intuition, which he considered the voice of the divine. He said the subconscious mind speaks through intuition, hunches, inner guidance, spontaneous ideas, feelings of certainty, inner knowing. When you acknowledge your desire as fulfilled, something extraordinary happens. Your intuition reorganizes itself around that new reality. You begin to notice opportunities, move with direction, avoid wrong paths, attract helpful people, receive timely ideas, act at the right moment. Guidance becomes clearer, life becomes simpler, synchronicities become more frequent. You are no longer wandering, you are being led. Murphy believed that acknowledgement awakens this spiritual intelligence. Chapter 26. Prayer as Self-Alignment. Joseph Murphy insisted that prayer is not about changing God, it is about changing yourself. God, he believed, is infinite, unchanging, always giving, always abundant, always perfect. Thus, prayer is not persuasion. It is not negotiation. It is not convincing God to intervene. Instead, prayer aligns you with the eternal flow of good that is already present. Think of it this way. The river is always flowing. Prayer is turning your boat into the current. Acknowledgement is lifting your oars. Letting go is trusting the movement. Worry is paddling upstream. Prayer is the act of aligning your inner state with divine truth. This is why acknowledgement is essential. It adjusts your inner vibration to match the good you desire. Chapter 27. Prayer and the Law of Vibration. Though Murphy didn't always use the word vibration, the concept is clear in his teachings. The law of vibration says that everything is energy, everything moves, everything resonates, everything attracts similar frequencies. When you acknowledge your prayer as already answered, your vibration rises to match the fulfilled state. This shift in vibration attracts matching circumstances, shifts your emotional state, alters your mental atmosphere, changes your behavior, reorganizes your external world, influences the people you meet, shapes your timing and decisions. This is not magical thinking. It is the physics of consciousness. Murphy taught that each acknowledgement carries a vibrational signature. The more deeply you feel it, the more powerfully it imprints on the subconscious. Chapter 28. The Silence After Prayer. After acknowledgement comes one of the most important and most misunderstood parts of prayer: silence. Murphy often said, "Be still after you pray. Let the subconscious do its work." In this silence, you release, you trust, you allow, you stop interfering, you avoid doubt, you maintain peace. This silence is not empty, it is creative. It is where the seed begins to grow. Murphy believed that many people destroy their prayer by worrying immediately afterward, checking for results, doubting the process, talking themselves out of it. looking for signs prematurely. Silence protects the seed, doubt digs it up. Acknowledgement, followed by silence, is the formula. On Chapter 29, Obstacles to Effective Prayer. Murphy identified several obstacles that prevent acknowledgement from working. 1. Fear. Fear creates the vibration of the unwanted condition. 2. Impatience. Impatience signals lack of trust. 3. Negative self-concept. If you feel unworthy, the subconscious rejects your desire. 4. Contradictory thoughts. Doubt undermines the acceptance. 5. Emotional confusion. Mixed emotions produce mixed results. 6. Overanalysis. Trying to figure out how interrupts the process. 7. Speaking against your prayer. Complaining, worrying, and verbal negativity short-circuit the manifestation. Murphy said, "The greatest enemy of prayer is inner contradiction. You must remain faithful to the end." Faithfulness, persistence in acknowledgement. On Chapter 30, Living as If, the Art of Daily Acknowledgement. Perhaps the most transformative idea in Murphy's teaching is this: prayer must be lived, not performed. To live as if means embodying your fulfilled state daily, carrying yourself like someone whose desire is accomplished, thinking, feeling, and acting from the end, speaking only what aligns with the prayer, maintaining the emotional tone of fulfillment, refusing to enter states of lack. Living as if is not pretending, it is conditioning. It conditions the subconscious, your self-image, your emotional atmosphere, your habits, your energy field. This is how your life changes from the inside out. Murphy taught that acknowledgement must become your posture, your demeanor, your inner voice, your attitude, your emotional base. When acknowledgement becomes your lifestyle, prayer becomes automatic. Life itself becomes prayer. Chapter 31. The Power of Declaration and Affirmation. While Joseph Murphy emphasized inner feeling and acknowledgement, he also taught the power of affirmative declarations. But this is crucial. Affirmations do not work because of words. They work because of the feelings those words generate. Many people repeat affirmations mechanically. I am rich. I am rich. I am rich. I am healthy. I am confident. But inwardly they feel weak, afraid, doubtful, or unworthy. Murphy clarified, a spoken affirmation is only effective when it produces the feeling of the thing affirmed. Thus, affirmations must be believable, emotionally charged, said from conviction, not desperation, stated as acknowledgement, not begging, phrased in a way the subconscious can accept. For example, instead of saying, I am rich, which might feel false, you might say, every day my life is growing more abundant. I accept the flow of prosperity now. Abundance is my natural state. These statements move you toward acknowledgement without triggering inner resistance. Affirmations are tools for moving the emotional needle, nothing more, nothing less. Chapter 32. Fear versus Faith. The two sides of the subconscious. Murphy famously said, faith and fear are the same thing. They both operate through your subconscious mind. One produces positive results. The other produces negative results. Both faith and fear are beliefs, emotionalized thoughts, mental assumptions, inner convictions, forms of expectation. The subconscious mind does not judge them. It simply manifests whichever is stronger. This is why acknowledgement must be consistent, firm, emotionally grounded, practiced daily. If fear becomes dominant, it will hijack the creative power of the subconscious and produce unwanted outcomes. Murphy taught that the fastest way to extinguish fear is through acknowledgement because you cannot fear something that you already believe is done. When you feel, I already have it, fear dissolves. When you feel, I might lose it, fear rises. Acknowledgement produces stability. Fear produces instability. Chapter 33. The Law of Repetition. Impressing the Subconscious. The subconscious rarely changes instantly. It changes through repetition, consistent emotional direction. Murphy compared this to carving a pattern, engraving a symbol, planting a seed, training a habit. He explained, repetition of acknowledgement imprints the subconscious and creates belief. This is why daily practice matters. For example, each day you return to the feeling of fulfillment. Each night you dwell in the state of the answered prayer. Each morning you reaffirm your identity. Throughout the day, you maintain mental fidelity to the fulfilled state. Over time, the subconscious accepts the new pattern. Once accepted, the result becomes inevitable. This is why some people see gradual manifestation and others see sudden breakthroughs. The timing depends on how quickly the subconscious accepts the new assumption. Repetition makes acknowledgement permanent. Chapter 34. Neutralizing doubt through inner certainty. Doubt is the greatest destroyer of prayer. Murphy said, doubt cancels your prayer because doubt is the belief in the opposite condition. Doubt usually arises from old conditioning, fear of disappointment, impatience, external appearances, limiting beliefs, past failures. Acknowledgement neutralizes doubt because it replaces uncertainty with certainty. A powerful method Murphy taught for dissolving doubt. Whenever doubt appears, immediately repeat a simple acknowledgement such as, "It is done. The answer is mine now. God is working through me now. All is unfolding perfectly. I accept my good completely." This shifts your inner vibration back to alignment. Doubt is a temporary storm. Acknowledgement is the anchor. On Chapter 35. Why prayer fails for so many people. Murphy devoted entire lectures to explaining why most people's prayers do not produce the results they want. He identified several common reasons. 1. Asking instead of acknowledging. They pray from lack, not fulfillment. 2. Conflicting emotions. They affirm abundance but feel poor. They pray for love but feel unworthy. They ask for health but feel sick. 3. Failure to persist. They give up too soon. They abandon the prayer when progress is unseen. 4. Repeating the problem. They talk more about the issue than the solution. 5. Not entering a receptive state. Praying while tense, fearful or worried blocks impression. 6. Emotional interference. Checking for signs too often disrupts the process. Murphy said, prayer fails when the conscious mind dominates. Prayer succeeds when the subconscious mind is impressed. The key is to bypass the analytical mind and imprint the feeling of fulfillment. On Chapter 36. The role of sleep in acknowledgement. One of the most powerful elements of Murphy's teaching is the importance of the sleep state. He said, the hour before sleep and the hour after waking are the golden moments for prayer. Why? Because the conscious mind is quiet. The subconscious is open. Resistance is low. Imagination becomes vivid. Feelings are more easily impressed. This is why nighttime acknowledgement is so effective. Before sleep, imagine the fulfilled state. Feel the end result. Give thanks. Sink into the feeling of peace. Repeat a simple acknowledgement statement. As you transition into sleep, the subconscious takes over and works all night on your behalf. Murphy believed that nighttime prayer was the most important prayer of the day. Chapter 37. Faith as mental imagination. Murphy broke down the concept of faith into a psychologically practical definition. Faith, sustained imagination, plus feeling. It is not blind belief. It is not blind hope. It is the ability to imagine the end result, feel its reality, hold that state long enough to impress the subconscious. He said, faith is the substance of things imagined as real. This means, what you imagine with emotion becomes your personal truth. Your personal truth becomes your inner law. Your inner law becomes your outer world. Faith is fundamentally creative because it is the mental act of acknowledgement. The more vividly you imagine your fulfillment, the stronger your faith. The stronger your faith, the faster the manifestation. On Chapter 38. The miracle of inner detachment. One of Murphy's most fascinating teachings is the idea of detachment. He taught that to receive your desire, you must become detached from desperation, over-attachment, fear of loss, emotional neediness, obsession over results. Detachment is not lack of interest. It is lack of fear. Detachment says, I already have it. It is guaranteed. I don't need to force it. I don't need to cling. He explained, the moment you detach from the desire, you affirm that it is fulfilled. Detachment is the psychological equivalent of receiving. When you mentally receive your desire, you become internally free from wanting. This internal freedom is what produces outer manifestation. On Chapter 39. Gratitude as a magnetic force. Murphy taught extensively about gratitude, calling it one of the strongest spiritual forces in existence. Why? Because gratitude is the emotional signature of fulfillment. You never feel grateful for something you don't believe you have. Thus, gratitude automatically signals acknowledgement. Gratitude raises your vibration instantly, aligns you with abundance, dissolves fear, weakens doubt, strengthens faith, accelerates manifestation, opens the subconscious, stabilizes your emotional state. Murphy said, Thanksgiving is the highest form of prayer, not because you thank God for what will come, but because you thank God for what already is. Your gratitude is evidence of acknowledgement. On Chapter 40. The Symphony of Thought, Feeling, and Belief. Murphy taught that manifestation happens when the three powers of consciousness align. 1. Thought, the image. 2. Feeling, the emotional charge. 3. Belief, the acceptance. When thought contradicts feeling, feeling contradicts belief, belief contradicts imagination, your prayer becomes ineffective. But when your thought is aligned, your feeling is aligned, your belief is aligned, you become unstoppable. This alignment is what acknowledgement creates. Thought, I already have it. Feeling, I feel fulfilled. Belief, it is done. This is the trinity of manifestation.